So my addiction started when I was in my 20s. To be honest, when I was younger, I moved away from home and I finally saw cocaine for the first time. And I had a very small love affair with cocaine because it really wasn't my drug of choice. But then when I was in my mid-20s, I lived in Long Island, New York, and I went to a doctor because I hurt my back, and he prescribed me Vicodin. And I had no idea what it was. And I just assumed because it was from my doctor that it was safe, it was okay. And unfortunately, it was not something that was safe or okay for me because I, like many, have the disease of addiction, and it awoken something inside of me that I never even knew existed. For about a year, I continued to get a prescription from him, not knowing that the reason why I needed it was because I was actually addicted to it. And when he went on vacation and I couldn't get any, my life got turned upside down. I remember calling the doctor's office and the receptionist telling me well, he's on vacation. And I said, okay, well, can I just get a refill till he gets back? I'm out of my medication. And she was like, no, you can't. She was like, you need to go to rehab. And when she said rehab to me, my perception, my very close-minded perception back then, was rehab was for old white people who needed to go and stop drinking. That's what rehab was for back then. I was extremely close-minded. I had no idea what that really even meant. And that was my stigma and my judgment towards alcoholism back then. And instead of doing that, I, at the time, was bartending at a strip club, and I said, well, they have everything else here. They have to have these then if it's such a big deal. And sure enough, they did. And I was off to the races. I had Percocet for the first time ever, Oxycontin. And I just, from there, it grew leaps and bounds. I got back into cocaine. Everything kind of blew up for me for a little bit. I moved back home in New York to Staten Island. And from there, things just continued to grow, and my addiction continued to grow. And my family decided to move to upstate New York. And by then I was so bad into pills and cocaine, I decided that I was going to move with them. And I did. And that was the first time ever in my life that I saw heroin. I've heard of it my whole life, but I never saw it and I never knew what it was. And I also then found Oxycontin. And that's really when my love of substances blossomed. I started doing oxys. I can't even remember how many a day. It literally was my focus of my every single day. How to get them, where to get them, where to get the money to get them. And I finally wasn't able to have them because somebody ran out or something had happened. And the kid that I was dating at the time was like, well, I have something, but you're not gonna like it. And I was super sick, couldn't get off the toilet sick, the sickest I'd ever been. I didn't understand what was going on. And finally, after 3 hours of throwing up and being sick to my stomach, I was finally like, what is it? I'll take whatever it is. And he said, well, the only thing I have left isn't a needle. And I was like, no. And finally another hour where I was literally laying on the floor. I couldn't get off the floor. And he was like, you ready now? And I was like, I don't even care anymore. Yeah, I can't feel like this anymore. I thought I was dying. And within 5 seconds, it was like I touched the hand of God and the world was right. And from there, it just continued. This was back in 2006. In 2007, I got my first prison sentence. It went from 0 to a bazillion in less than a year. Ended up in prison on grand larceny charges. I came home, got my act together, was on parole for a year, completed parole successfully, and within 1 year, literally, date to date, 1 year of being home from parole, bam, got more charges because I was back at it, because I had had a taste, and once you have that taste, man, it just consumes you. Whether you are sober at that moment or not, if you get sober because you are told you have to and you are forced to, and it is not a sober in your soul, it controls you, it still owns you. If your sobriety has to be on your own accord. After my second prison bid that I caught, I really didn't catch it, I earned it. I came home and I so I ended up getting sentenced to 3 to 6 years in state prison, but I managed to get a program called Willard. Willard is a 90-day intensive boot camp program in New York State. It is, I'm not really sure at this point. It's kind of like in limbo. We don't know if it's still there or not. It's kind of there, but it's developed into something different. But anyway, so I did my 90-day program and I never picked up heroin ever again. I did, however, meet my daughter's father, and I ended up getting pregnant, and we absconded on parole and got married. And that is what led me to being pregnant in prison. I went back on a parole violation. I was sentenced to 18 months in Bedford Hills Correctional Facility in Westchester, New York. That's because the nursery program that they have there, you are only allowed to be there for 18 months. And I have a very high faith, and I'm always a strong believer in God works in mysterious ways. And my God, my higher power, put me in that setting for a reason. And I learned so much that I never knew about being a mother. I did not even know how to trim my baby's nails. That was a very anxiety time for me. She was super, super tiny. I had her on December 31st in 2011. She was this little teeny tiny 6 pound, 6 ounce baby, 19 and a half inches long. I thought she was gonna be huge. Labor was not a fun time. And she came out and she had these beautiful eyelashes and she looked like a little alien. And I still was like in shock, like, I can't believe I have a baby. And after spending some time in the NICU and in the hospital, her and I went back to the facility and I learned how to be a mommy. And I was around women who I will never forget for the rest of my life. They taught me things that I never knew. They showed me kindness in a place that you normally don't see kindness. And they will forever be in my heart. And I still, to this day, try and keep in touch with them, and I love them dearly. After my time was up, my daughter and I went home together, and we lived in a shelter in Binghamton, New York. And that was short-lived because I just didn't want to do it alone. But I ended up moving back home to Delaware County, New York, and I started a little business for about 5 years. And there's a difference between getting sober and doing the work on the past traumas in your life and really making a change. And then there's just getting sober and not doing the drugs or alcohol or whatever the case may be, right? And just going on with your daily life like everything is normal and whatnot. That's what I did. I did the latter of the two. I didn't put the work in. I didn't understand what traumas meant. I didn't know what narcissistic parents were or past emotional abuse. And I just thought, I just don't do the drugs and it's fine. But unfortunately, that's not how our disease works, right? That's what our disease wants us to do. Our disease just wants us to put a Band-Aid on a bullet hole and just move past, so this way it can continue to grow in the dark and then explode into the light and take over your life again. And that's literally what it did. I had about 5 years and I had no friends. I had nothing besides my child and my job. And I said, I got this. It's this many years past. I don't have to worry about this. And I decided I'm going out. I'm gonna get a babysitter and I'm gonna go out. And I did. And literally the first night I went out and had a few drinks, I was offered cocaine. And I thought, I don't like cocaine. This is not my drug of choice, which I didn't even know the terminology drug of choice back then. I just thought, this isn't dope. It's cool. I'm gonna be okay. And I did a line of cocaine and I went home after having a few drinks, and I was kind of disgusted with myself because I felt dirty. And I felt like here I am laying in bed with my child, and I feel dirty. And it was terrible. And for like 2 months, I didn't go out because I was so disappointed. And I really didn't even realize it at the time, how disappointed and how disgusted I was with myself, because I was on the path of healthier thinking, but my disease was growing and getting stronger. I had no sponsor, no support system, no nothing. You know, back then, social media wasn't the way it is now, and there wasn't as many support groups. There wasn't, you know, people on YouTube talking about it, or TikTok didn't even exist. And there was I felt alone and misunderstood and disgusting and all the things that we tell ourselves because we are 100% our own worst enemies. And I just kind of, I think at that point I just kind of gave up a little bit. And I met somebody who is now my husband, who fights his own battles and his own demons. And he was doing cocaine at the time too, and it was kind of a match made in heaven, hell, and it proceeded from there. We got high together, but we were productive, right? Because he went to work every day, I owned a business, he had children, I had children. We appeared to be okay, but that's always the way it starts. You know, we're always able to keep it together in a box for a little bit until it gets so heavy, the box bursts open, we can't carry it, and now we're on the floor like floundering. And I guess this went on for about maybe a year and a half, and we found meth. Well, I found it. He had already known what it was. He and I actually had broken up for a little bit, and I went to a friend's house that I sincerely trusted at the time. And when he drove me and my daughter home after having dinner with him and his fiance and his child, he's like, "Can I use your bathroom for a second?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course, go right ahead." And he pops the door open and he's like, "Do you have like a compact or something?" So I assumed cocaine. And I was like, "No, but here's a CD cover. You can use this." And he comes out and he was like, "Thank you." He said, "I left you something on the top shelf in there." And I'm like, "Oh, let me go take care of that right now because I don't want to leave it around." And I went in and I thought it was a line of cocaine, and it wasn't. It was a line of meth, and I had never done it before. And he still to this day has never told me that it was meth. It's cocaine, and it absolutely wasn't. Finally, about 5 o'clock in the morning, I called my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, and I was like, "I don't feel so good." And he was like, "Well, what happened?" And I explained to him, and he was like, he gave you meth. And I'm like, "No, he didn't. You're 100% wrong. No, he didn't." And I ended up taking a car service with my daughter over to my then now husband, boyfriend house. And a few days later, I saw the same person and he offered me some more. And I took it and I put it into a cellophane because I wanted to prove to my husband that he was wrong and that it was cocaine and not meth. And sure as anything, he was right and I was wrong. It was meth. And I didn't like it, but I guess in a part of me I did. And a couple weeks later, a mutual friend of my husband and I's offered us some one night. And he was like, "You want to see what it's really about? Okay, let's see what it's really about." I think he wanted me to not like it but be in a safe environment. And I loved it. I loved it just as much as heroin, maybe even more. And then I got a bright idea that, everybody seems to want this, but it's not around. So I'm going to locate a bunch and I'm going to sell it in my area. And fast forward a year and a half, I was sentenced to 3 years in prison, 2 years post-release. I ended up surrendering custody of my daughter to my family. Looking back, if I would have known there's different types of custody, I definitely would have made a different decision. I gave full, complete 100% custody, hands down, no questions asked, no expiration date, no nothing. I was in a very fragile state in my life. I trusted my family to do the right thing by my daughter, and they did. Physically, monetarily, support-wise, they absolutely did. I came home in 2019 after doing a year and a half in regular state prison, and then I said, "I'm going home, screw this," and I applied for a program called SHOCK, which is military boot camp. It is a 6-month program. They shave your head every 2 weeks. You have military bearings at all times. You sing cadences, you march everywhere, 3 minutes to shower, 8 minutes to eat. And I did it. And I still look back sometimes and I can't believe I did it. And I did it with flying colors. It's not even just that I did it amazing. And I feel like everyone that has, this is a very unpopular opinion, but I feel like everyone that has substance use disorder should go to a program like this because you know what? It proved to me I can do anything as long as I keep getting back up. No matter how hard it is, how wrong I do it, how difficult, as long as I keep trying, I can do it. I can conquer anything. You know, as people with substance use disorder, we didn't just wake up one day and say, I'm gonna ruin my life. I'm gonna hurt everybody in my path, including myself, my family, my children, my loved ones, my friends. It takes us a long time to get to that point. And the things and the paths that we walk till we get to that point, we are the strongest, most resilient people I've ever met in my life. I'm honored now to work with people who have substance use disorder, and the stories they tell me, they're mind-blowing. And they get up every day, and they get dressed, and they live life the best way that they know how to. And sometimes when our sessions are over, I don't even know how to breathe. What they've just told me is so heavy. And they get up and they walk out, they give me a hug and they walk out and we meet again, and it's just whatever, you know? And then people have the audacity to criticize people with substance use disorder and call them weak and say that they're feeble and they're not strong. And it's the complete opposite. Because the path that I have walked in my life, most people wouldn't make 5 steps on it. And here I am every day. I get up, I pay my rent to my sobriety, I make good decisions, I make a choice every day. And it is a choice every day. There are days I could just give up, but I don't, because I have this amazing little girl who looks at me every day, and she is the most important thing I have ever done in my life. And I want her to see mommy screwed up big time, and she made all these mistakes, but she gets up every day because she loves me and she wants me to know there's a better way of life, and we can make mistakes, but it's how we learn from them and how we move forward that matters. Life with Bella is, I don't even think there's like a word to put on it. It's amazing, it's difficult, it's fun, it's life. You know, it's truly like what life is supposed to be. She's in the 4th grade, she's 10, she thinks she's 20. She is sweet, she's sassy, she's intelligent, she's just great. She drives me crazy. I love her to death. Do you remember back then?
Nope. That much, not that much.
Yeah, I'm glad you don't.
I'm glad I don't either.
Yeah?
Yep.
My career is multifaceted. I work with people who are in active addiction and newly in recovery, just home from jails, prisons, and any type of stay, rehab. And I really work with people on how to recover, whatever that looks like to them. I'm a syringe peer, so I'm a CARC, a SERPA, a rape crisis counselor, a syringe peer, and I am also the founder of Supplies for Life, and I have a YouTube channel. As providers and coaches and advocates and every other person in this type of field, it's our job to help build people back up, right? To walk alongside of them on their path and help them be the best version of themselves that they can be. We already put ourselves down enough as addicts. We don't need anyone else to add to that because we take the cake on that. I think that like the best thing you can just do is listen, be supportive, treat me like a human.